Today's lesson is on finding circumference. So up until now, we've been measuring diameter and then measuring the circumference of circles. And then today we're going to use equations to start finding the circumference of circles. So in your packet on Circle, I want you to open up to day 3. And this is actually going to be page 7 of your packet. We're going to take a couple notes and then we're actually going to practice finding circumference. So on page 7, it does tell you that we're going to watch a brain pop video, but it's super expensive, so I decided to make my own video instead. So in this first section, pi is a letter from the Greek alphabet. So just a little bit of history. It actually is considered a letter, but we really just know it as a letter to represent a number. So it's kind of like a variable. Next, the pi alpha or letter is actually used to represent the relationship between a circle's circumference and diameter. So if I know one of the two, if I know circumference, then I can find diameter of a circle, or if I know the diameter, I'm going to be able to find the circumference. So let's talk about pi. Hopefully you know this, that pi is a digit that repeats and it goes on forever. 3.14159, and you can continue going because there's an infinite amount of numbers that are in pi. So it goes on forever, so that's why we use the symbol instead of writing it out, because we do not want to be writing for the rest of our lives. This should actually say in 7th grade we can use 3.14 as the estimate of pi when we calculate the area and circumference of circles. So for today's purposes, we're going to only be looking at circumference, but we will be moving on to area. So 3.14 is the rounded version of pi. Also in your calculators there is a pi button, so if you just press that pi button, it'll give you the digits automatically instead of you having to type them in. So let's go ahead and go on to page 8, just a quick couple notes on page 8 as well. So how do we find the circumference of any circle? So in the previous lesson you guys were measuring the diameter and then measuring the circumference. So the circumference is the perimeter of the circle, so the outside edge, and you use string to find the length, and then you measure that string to see how long the circumference is. Okay, and hopefully you saw the relationship between them, but we're going to talk about that right now. So we know that pi is 3.14. So the formula of the circumference of a circle, there's 2 different formulas you can use. When I was in middle school, we used this formula here, 2 pi r. So if I take the radius times 2 times pi, we would get our circumference. I think now this second equation is becoming more popular because we know that the radius is half of a circle and the diameter is the full length of the circle. So if I'm multiplying the radius by 2, I really have the diameter. So this is just a simplified version of this first equation. It does not matter which one you use, but I would think that the second equation is a little bit easier to use. It'll be a little bit quicker. So if you have the diameter and you multiply it by pi, you will get your circumference. Okay, and on our last lesson, what I was trying to get you guys to see, the relationship between diameter and pi, is that if you have the diameter and we're multiplying it by pi to get the circumference, we know that pi is 3.14. So to be able to find the circumference of a circle, you can generally find an estimate by just multiplying the diameter by 3. Okay, and that takes us on to our next section here. So if a circle has a diameter of 8 centimeters, how would you find the circumference of the circle? So if the diameter is 8, here's my equation up here, pi times diameter, to find the circumference. All I would have to take is the diameter times pi. And you can type 3.14 into your calculator, or you can use the pi symbol when you're putting this into your calculator. Okay, so if we use mental math to estimate the circumference, this is what I was just talking about earlier, and hopefully you found this relationship during our last lesson, but pi is about 3, so if I could round that even more to a general number, I would round it down to 3. So if I was estimating, I would take about 3 times 8 is 24. Okay, 3.14 is a little bit larger, so I know that the circumference of this particular circle that is 8 centimeters is going to be about 24, but I also know it's going to be a bit larger since 3.14 is larger than 3. Oops, sorry, I don't know what happened there. So we know that the circumference is about 24 centimeters. Okay, so that's pretty general. And we're going to, on this one we had to estimate, but we're going to practice finding an exact amount here in just a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to work in the opposite direction. So if we know that the circumference is 20 pi, so I know whatever my circumference is, it's going to be 20 times pi. They want to know what 20 pi is about, how much. So in my head I'm thinking, okay, pi is about 3.14, so it's about 3. So 20 times 3 is about 60 centimeters. So again, in this one we're just estimating. And then it asks you some different questions. So from this information, what is the diameter of the circle? So up above, right here, we stated the equation is diameter times pi. Okay, so if I'm looking at these pieces of information, here is our pi. So the number represents our diameter. Okay, so our diameter of this circle is 20. And if I know the diameter is 20, they want us to find the radius. So the relationship between the radius and the diameter is that the radius is half of the diameter. So if I take half of 20, we have 10. Okay, so those are just some basic notes over circumference. It's a fairly easy equation to use. All you have to remember is diameter times pi to find the circumference. And now I'm actually going to have you get this practice worksheet. This is going to be some independent practice. As you can see, the equation for circumference is already written on the paper for you, so you might want to highlight that or make it stand out to you. And you're just going to use this as a formula to practice finding circumference. So there's an example here for you that if the diameter is 10 centimeters, and I know that pi is 3.14, if I multiply those two numbers together, really all that's going to happen is by multiplying by 10 as my decimal point is going to move over one spot, and our circumference is going to be about 31 4/10 centimeters. Okay, so you have 7 questions to do independently. I would like for you to write the equation and then solve it as well, so I don't want just the answer here. I want you to write the equation and then solve it to find the circumference of all of these circles. Again, on your calculator you can just type in 3.14, or you can use the pi button to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Okay, and then when you're done with this worksheet, I would like for you to turn it into your class periods basket. Thank you.